Hi, we're back. Um, Sorry for the long intermission. Uh, you're never going to get out of this without some technical difficulties. I'm Dean O'Donnell, still a professor at WPI, um, at least as far, last I checked. I'd like to introduce our new devs. First, Meaghan Glynn. Meg is a seasoned adventurer of over 12 years in the Boston area game development scene. Previously, she has provided UI UX support to the fabled groups known as Turbine and Gamer Sensei. Her latest venture is with a band of misfits known as Demiurge Studios. And uh, Ben Schneider, game writer and designer who, over a 20-year career, has worked on role playing and strategy games including Titan Quest, Kingdoms of Amalur, and Lord of the Rings Online. Loves to philosophize about narrative experience and believes all game experiences are narrative experiences. Ipso ergo, loves to philosophize about all games. That was me. That last part was me. Um, And we're also joined with Natalie Milgram, uh, who has created the Book of Worlds. This is an actual book, and not a video game. Uh, and I'm excited about it. I think it's one of the coolest things this year. So I'm gonna get out of the way and let the three of you, talk.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello,
Very nice to meet you.
nice to meet you.
Uh, could I start by saying how beautiful the book is and how much amazing art is packed in there? Like, wow.
Thanks.
How long did uh how long did all of that take you?
Um, well, because I started brainstorming ideas in March of last year, but I ended up essentially like rewriting all of those ideas anyways. But I think everything started mulling in my brain like last March
Hmm.
and over the summer, and then I just worked on it throughout the year. Like I started really trying to develop the art, I would say in like August. But I also had to cut back on worlds because I started with ideas for
Oh,
like 7 worlds
oh, that's too bad.
and like this whole like intergalactic pet store thing with creatures inspired from psychotropic medications. I just cut that down and focused on 3 worlds.
I think I'm speaking for both of us when I say we're very familiar with cutting back ambitions.
Yes.
It's definitely
Scope
a
creep.
professional hazard, yeah, and a we tell ourselves it builds character.
It's sad, but it is a wise decision often to cut. How did you decide what made it into the book and what did not?
Um, well, I mostly just so I started with Lugel, the world inspired from by eating disorders symptoms, and I worked on that throughout a term, did the art, did the spreads. It was sort of just like I would work on the art and I had this prose that I written and I just sort of freeformed a bit and like just saw where it took me. And by the time I was done with Lugel, that was the end of a term. And I realized that in order to really thoroughly explore the world and like really get into it and get good solid concepts with solid developed art that was enough for a chapter, it really took a whole term. So I decided to focus on the worlds that I was most like personally connected to with the illnesses themselves, and then just the concepts, the stronger concepts I kept. And I figured 1 term per world, and then the last term was just sort of refining, editing, and like getting like proof copies of the book.
Cool. Um, how did you name each of your worlds? I think I suspect I know how Lugel was named.
Yeah. So my method for naming the worlds, at least for Lugel, I took a piece of paper and I wrote down names for a while on my piece of paper. And Lugel came about because of the Lu, which also took some time to name, less time to name. But when I came up with the Lu, I started thinking of
Mhm.
stuff like the the segment of the word Lou in it. So I basically had this piece of paper that just had nonsense words all over it, and then I combined syllables to form different words, and then eventually Lugel was like one of the words, and I went with that because I thought it sounded the best.
Awesome.
Damon, I don't know. I think again, just like brainstorming words, writing them down, thinking of just different words and combinations of syllables. And same thing with Polarenti. Originally I had Erosembra, and I liked that flow of the rhythm of the syllable. So yeah.
Does roll off the tongue.
Yeah, I was struck as I was going through all the images and all the pages, how this was like such a like direct act of world building. You know, you literally set out and you built worlds. What was that was that sort of must have been at the front of your mind that you're, I mean it's almost in the mission statement. Were you thinking
Yeah,
about it
like
that way?
in terms of just like making worlds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a sort of I don't know how aware you are of this, but in, you know, in both sort of like genre literature, and then in, you know, in a lot of other narrative enterprises like video games, people think long and hard about world building, and this is sort of like a huge like foray into that, where you sat down and you just, you know, created 3 of them. Could have been 7. I'm curious, like as you're going through it, like there's a lot that's like the book wears a lot of what it's about on its sleeve, and I kind of love that. But I'm curious, sort of how you thought about that. Like, I'm building a world part of it, and if there are lessons that you learned or insights that you feel like you're coming away with out of such a large creative process.
Yeah, there's a lot that I learned. In terms of building the worlds, a lot that I took away is it takes time to like have my ideas like develop, and a lot of my process is like getting reference images and just taking time to like iterate through ideas and like go on these long tangents of ideas that might not result in anything, but then like one small thing would just trigger this entire other branch of ideas, and then just picking the strongest things and understanding that it might not make sense in the beginning, but just like waiting for everything to like grow and like just totally like free forming it. I learned a lot just by like making a lot of stuff and then picking the strongest of those things and continuing forward until I had like strong core concepts and keeping that and just building off of that. I think that's one thing I'm going to take away. It's just like understanding that I will be uncertain a lot in the beginning and just leave room for ideas to grow.
Yeah, that can be hard to overcome. I know as an artist, I get that kind of decision paralysis. I was wondering what actually inspired your the style that you chose for these different worlds.
Okay, yeah. So the style, Lugel's style was mostly at the time just whatever I naturally did with gouache, because I self-published this children's book, a separate book, like over the winter break, and that was all in gouache. And I think I was just coming off of that book, and I was comfortable working with gouache, so the style was mostly just what I naturally did with the gouache, and I wasn't consciously trying to make it into a certain style. It just manifested, I think, in that style. But then when I got to Polarenti, I was really trying to make the style inspired from Symptoms of Mania, and like I was really trying for rough mark making that was faster and a little bit more disorganized and kind of chaotic, and also that was more of a mixed media world, so I was just experimenting with different mediums. And the style for Damon was also different, and actually part of Damon's style was inspired from entoptic phenomena, like that is experienced in different states of consciousness. Like I remember I was reading about what was the book called? The Mind in the Cave. I was reading that around that time, and it was inspiring some of the art style, like the symbols that you see, because I associated that with dissociation, which is a symptom of PTSD and trauma.
Right.
But also the style was again, sort of what I naturally did. It's sort of hard for me to overcome my own natural style. I have to do it in my own, what I naturally do, and then kind of manipulate that later on kind of how I want it to look, how the field will look, but I kind of have to just do it my own way first.
Right, yeah. You start in your comfort zone and sort of like push your way out
Yeah.
a bit. And gouache is super hard to work in, or at least I found it very hard. So I'm very impressed by that.
I really like gouache. It's fun.
It's beautiful. If you do it well. I
Yeah,
never quite
gouache
got the
is
hang of
kind
it,
of
but
hard. I guess it's hard. It was the first medium I learned to really paint with. Like I started watching James Gurney on YouTube. I was just binge watching his videos.
I'll
And
have
then
to
I
check
did a
that
lot
out.
of plein air paintings.
Maybe
Oh,
he
it's
can
nice.
teach me. Cool.
I was kind of struck as I was looking through everything as the book, that like there were at least two separate sort of creative acts that had gone on where you created these worlds and painted these vibrant pictures, and then you did a second thing where you took the pictures, the sketches, and a bunch of text and arranged them into a book. And I was curious, like like where you started with the book part and how you made some of the decisions that you made as you went through that.
Yeah, sure. So like that was hard. It was my first time ever doing it. I mostly was looking at other art of books, concept art books, to see how they laid out their spreads, and I went off of that. And when I did Lugel, I had these chunks of prose that I had written, like text about the world, and then I had all this art, and I had my InDesign file, and I basically threw in blocks of text and images of art and started moving things around, and just did what I felt like looked good and felt good, and tried to match my reference of published books that look good. And I just, once I did Lugel, I had ideas for like, I started realizing, oh, if these things are aligned horizontally or vertically, it'll look more clean and more organized. And just experimenting with different placements, shifting things back like 2 pixels this way and 2 pixels that way. And that was really how I did the spreads and layouts. It was mostly just experimenting once I had the art and text.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what made you interested in covering a topic like mental illness?
I have close family that's has mental illness. I've dealt with like mental health issues. A lot of my friends deal with mental health issues. It impacted my life a lot. I'm interested in it, and I know there's a lot of stigma around it still in the U.S. and around the world. And the project was, I don't know, it was interesting for me to just explore like kind of my feelings about mental illness, and just taking a topic that's important to me and also world building, which I like really enjoy, and like merging them together was like kind of a fulfilling project for me. And just that it's about mental illness, and like my kind of a sub goal of the project was maybe having people maybe feel more comfortable about talking about mental illness, just because I know a lot of people don't talk about it still, and there's a lot of stigma around it. So that was kind of why I was choosing mental illness.
Yeah, there's a distinct lack of good representation of mental illness in games at the moment. It's getting much better, and so I love to see stuff like this. But yeah, I love to see more educational type games that help you explore these topics that are really hard to interface with at times, but in a way that's like kind of gentle and educational, and not too heavy, but maybe exploratory, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard to balance.
Was it
Hi,
hard to work on at
everybody.
times? Oh, hi.
The voice of
Oh, it
Dean.
goes so fast.
The voice of
Oh,
Dean
no.
comes in. So I'd like to thank Natalie, and we're going to take a little break here as we shuffle some chairs, and we'll be right back with our final interview of the night.